It's no secret that I love diving, but lately there's been some things about diving that are just pissing me off. So let's go diving and talk about it.
Because you might be one of them.
These are things that I think most divers either are dealing with, have dealt with, or will deal with. Pretty widespread issues that we're talking about here. So let's get to it. That's good. Have you ever had a question about diving that you couldn't quite find the answer to? You took to the internet only to be ridiculed by the people you came to for help? You are not alone. I could talk about this all day, but let's just talk about the one scenario that I see over and over again. If you're a side mount diver, especially a side mount diver that may not have had the best side mount course, or maybe no course at all, you understand that trimming out aluminum tanks can be one of the more difficult things for people to get. It's a combination of a few different things, and they all have to be in equilibrium for your tanks to be just right. And if you were never taught that, then I could see why you might think to take a picture of yourself, post it on the internet, and ask for help. There are some less than stellar side mount instructors, and at that point, it's really not the student's fault. They just took a side mount course. So in my mind, it's really the instructor's fault. Can you even really blame them because they got taught by someone else, right? Unless they figured it out themselves and they're just perpetuating their own nonsense out there. I'm not a fan of that. But let's say this diver posts a photo of themselves, tanks at like a 45-degree angle on some Facebook group. Do you think that they're going to be met with support and encouragement? That's not what's going to happen. In fact, I see ridicule and shame in their future, which as an instructor are two of my favorite methods. Not really. I get it. When you've worked so hard on your buoyancy and trim and your rig, and you see someone else out there just making us look bad, it can piss you off. You've got to think about it differently. This is a person who's actively trying to get better. They are not the enemy. If they haven't taken a course, or maybe they need a course from a better instructor, ridiculing them is not going to drive the point home. The argument that I see out there a lot is that,
man, these people are going to get themselves hurt. I'm just trying to save their lives.
If your intention is to help or potentially even save somebody's life, then you could try coming at it from a more supportive angle. Maybe give them some pointers. Then you could say something like, I learned these things in my side mount class. If you took a side mount class with my instructor or an instructor like that, you could really get all this stuff dialed in during the class. And it's so much easier than just trying to figure it out yourself. I'm an instructor. My livelihood is based on people taking courses from me. So obviously I want people out there taking courses. When someone goes online to ask for help and they're met with ridicule, I don't think it's going to drive them towards a course. In fact, I think it's going to drive them in the exact opposite direction. All I'm trying to say is you could try being nice. I really think it'll work. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. Know better, do better. We've all been through a phase in our life where we like to talk a little shit. It's so much more rewarding to be supportive and helpful. And you know what else I hate? Gear snobs. Can't stand them. Now, I know that's kind of rich coming from a guy sitting behind a rebreather, but just because I use some expensive gear does not mean I'm a snob. I have been known to be a cheap son of a bitch on occasion. It is kind of important to be choosy on where you're a cheap son of a bitch. You know, you don't want to skip on your O2 sensors or try to run your scrubber longer than you should. What I'm talking about are the folks diving titanium regulators and back plates and looking down on anybody else who doesn't have the credit card to pull that off. Don't get me wrong, it is important to have the right gear, but the right gear is not always the expensive gear. Unfortunately, sometimes the right gear is the expensive gear, but not always. I've got a $35 flashlight that's been in my left pocket as a backup cave diving since July 2024, and I have not had a single issue with it. Buying a quality regulator for like $700 versus $2,000 isn't being cheap. It's being smart. If you stick with this sport long enough and you get into technical diving, you're going to need like 4, 5, 6 regulators. So find something high quality that you like at a decent price point and just go with that. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and buy a bunch of old US divers con shelves and try to use them for side mount, but you don't got to spend atomic money to be a good diver.
Let's talk about nitrox. Nitrox elitist, to be specific. Now, don't get me wrong, I love nitrox. It's a wonderful gas that enables us to do amazing dives, but for a 25-foot dive in a lake, yeah, I'll save some money and stick to air, thanks. Now, don't get me wrong, if you've got diving to do and nitrox is what's in the tanks, dive the nitrox. But if you've got a choice, why waste the money? And stop telling people that they should never dive air and that nitrox is the bare minimum gas they should dive. And you guys that like to dive trimix anytime you're deeper than 100 feet, I could get behind that. But diving trimix for a 70-foot dive, you can miss me with that bullshit. And if you've got a problem with me using air diluent for a 110-foot dive, I don't give a shit. I assess my risks and decide what I'm comfortable with. Nobody else can dive for me. I've got to do it myself. And so do you.
I mean, I don't really think that you're going to get a whole lot out of that course. I think you should do something like side mount, nitrox, something that is really going to teach you something and not just have you swimming around a wreck for shits and giggles. All right, man, I'll see you at the quarry. Courses that don't really teach you anything you need to know tend to irk me. The recreational wreck diver course, what is that really teaching you? It's just trying to steal the thunder of an actual wreck course so that you can have a little card that says wreck diver. Don't get me wrong, if you took a wreck course, you had a great time, more power to you, but I think you would have had just as much fun just diving on a wreck. I don't really see why your average open water diver can't swim around a wreck that's within their depth range. And don't even get me started on boat diver. If you come out of my open water class and you can't dive off of a boat, then I have seriously screwed up. And they always try to throw in a bunch of weird stuff that nobody actually does just to try to fill the course out. It's because the course was a joke to begin with, and you can't fix that. And last but not least, I really hate dive shop gatekeeping. There are so many great dive shops out there. Dive shops where you walk in and you could just hang out all day. You know what I'm talking about? But there's some dive shops out there where the staff is just convinced that their shit doesn't stink. They don't have the time of day for you if you're not buying some expensive piece of gear. They don't want to fill your weird den tanks. And frankly, they're really only interested in making a quick buck off of you. I wager that their classes probably aren't too high quality either. More often than not, they're probably gear snobs too that judge people's skill level based off the equipment that they have, not off actual skill. So why don't you just drop the act and hop in that pool you never use and practice back kicking for a while? You'll feel better. I know this is a little bit more of an aggro video than I typically make, but this stuff really was pissing me off, and I felt like it needed to be talked about to hopefully make diving better for everyone. Speaking of making diving better for everyone, I'm working on a new Discord server where divers can go just to ask questions without being ridiculed. Originally, this was going to be something specifically for my patrons, but I think it'll be a lot better if I make at least part of it available to everybody at no cost. So if that's something you're interested in, I will put a link in the pinned comment below, and you can check that out. We'd love to see you there. We're trying to build a community of divers that support each other. And if you're interested in being a moderator, then reach out to me in the comments or send me an email. I'd like to thank Dive Vibe supporters on Patreon for making videos like this possible. Coolest people in the world. If you would like to be one of those cool people and get access to some exclusive content and your name in every video, then follow the link to Patreon in the pinned comment below and you will receive my everlasting gratitude. Thanks in advance. I'd also like to thank you for watching. Dive safe, and I'll see you in the water.
Oh,
look.